My name is Thomas, and I am a 737 driver for work. And when I'm not flying, I own Hangar 22 coffee roasters, and have been doing that for the last, almost 5 years now. I've been running a coffee business along with flying airplanes, which has been a lot of fun.
Thomas, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Pilot podcast.
Hey, Justin, thanks so much for having me here. It's kind of wild. It's, for so long I've been listening to you while I go to the airport, and now here I am on your podcast. It's kind of wild. Thanks for having me.
Even though we are, I haven't really done coffee that much in a while, but even though we both have coffee companies, it is cool to see you just continue to kill it, man. I mean, what you've been able to do, what you've been able to build, and just being at Oshkosh and being partnering with Textron and having the ability to have good coffee, because we both know the caffeine options at EAA AirVenture were historically terrible. So thank you so much for providing good coffee for everyone to have and keeping everyone caffeinated, because a lot of people need it after the SOS tent the next night or that night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I've decided to sacrifice my time at the SOS tent every night so that I can make sure that everyone who shows up the next morning has coffee to supply them throughout the morning, especially during the really long, hot days at AirVenture.
Yeah, it's a must, man. And there's always a line there. I feel like I went there either at 6 or not 6 a.m. I was never there at 6 a.m. but early. And then when you go there later, there's still got a line of people waiting for some coffee. So, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's it's honestly a really huge treat. So I can't complain. But we all know whose coffee is better, though. Let's be honest.
I have to go with yours because I haven't really sold coffee in a while. So technically, there is no Pilot's coffee right now. It's waiting to come back. It's in the closet, probably actually right behind me. I think I have like a box of 500 packets.
Right. Well, maybe this is an opportunity for, a Pilot's coffee with Hangar 22 collaboration, because I don't mind roasting extra. I can't complain.
I don't have a roaster, so maybe we'll talk about it. But we are here to talk about coffee, and we're here to talk about you. So I kind of want to focus a little bit on you, the pilot itself. So tell me why. Why did you become a pilot in the first place?
Great question. I got into aviation pretty young. I kind of knew I wanted to be a pilot since I was 4, actually. I've always been into machinery, large vehicles and machinery just growing up. So, whether it be a fire truck or a dump truck or a crane, construction equipment, whatever, I've always just been interested in operating big things. And when I was 4, I flew on a 767. Once I did that and I realized this building has wings and it flies and there's people who do it, I was sold. And that pretty much, gave me the spark I needed to get interested in aviation. I from that point onwards, I knew what I wanted to do. I've been very fortunate and very lucky that I knew what I wanted to do at a young age. And then, once I was in high school, I got my class 1 medical, made sure I was fit to fly, and then started taking flying lessons from there. And that kind of took off.
Yeah, so you had to wait all the way to high school to start getting your ratings. I know in the United States you're Canadian based, but solo at 16, or no, you can solo at 16 and get your private at 17. Is it similar in Canada?
In Canada, you can solo at 14 and then 16 to get a recreational license, but 17 to get your private. So I started flight training when I was 15, and then solo when I was 16, got my private when I was 17. Okay. So that's what I ended up, that was the path that I took. And then once I finished that, I went to the equivalent of what you guys would call a 141 program. So I did the equivalent of a 141 program in Canada. And it was a really accelerated program where I was able to finish everything in 18 months, which was wild. But then from that point onwards, I was in Canada. We don't have the 1,500 hour rule, so I was slated to go into a regional airline in Canada. However, I graduated in March of 2020, which was not the best time in the world for pilot jobs. No. And that ended up leading me to working actually at a bunch of coffee shops, because if I'm not flying, the other thing that I know how to do is coffee. So I was a barista at a bunch of different local shops in Toronto. And then I ended up becoming an apprentice aircraft mechanic. That kind of led me to starting the business and eventually coming back to Toronto. I was originally, I ended up going to Collingwood when I was an apprentice aircraft mechanic. Came back to Toronto. I ended up shoveling snow at the airport to get closer to my aviation networks and connections. And then from shoveling snow, I ended up becoming a concierge at one of our local FBOs, which led me to getting a job on a G150. And then that kind of accelerated my career forward. And now I eventually ended up becoming an airline pilot, which has been a lot of fun. So no complaints.
Let's talk about the mentality of you're graduating, March 2020. You think your career is about to take off. I got all my ratings. I don't need 1,500 hours, just like the States, people in the States do. Like, I'm going to a regional. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an airline pilot. This is what I trained for. And then all of a sudden, you get blindsided. COVID comes, kind of resets everything. The industry, it looks like it's just going down the tank, right? Like, talk about the mentality of that. How did that affect you? Did you think it was just never going to happen? You're like, well, I guess I'm part of the new lost generation, or kind of just talk about what you're going through.
No, actually, like I was really at peace with it, because I came into this industry, like I knew the cyclical nature of it. And there was at that time, the director of flight operations for Porter Airlines. He came to one of our graduations back when I was in high school. I just got my private, went and got my certificate, and it was like a big banquet with college students and a bunch of self-paced students taking every pathway to get their licenses. And he read this article, and I'll never forget this. I was like 17 years old. I was quickly humbled. And it was an article saying like, Canada and the United States are going to need, 10, 15,000 pilots in like the next 2 years. And the shortage is crazy. And everyone was cheering and high-fiving each other. Cause like, yeah, we graduated. Here we are. We're going to make it. And then he goes all the way to the bottom. He goes to the bottom of the article, and it actually reads the date. And the date said September 10th, 2001. I've never seen the room get so quiet so quickly, because people like know the suffering that happened after that. And it could be great today, but tomorrow we could, everyone's going to be furloughed. You don't know. And so it'll happen. Like, you're going to have bad moments. And there's going to be, it's a cyclical industry, but I knew that going into it. I know things can get worse. And at the end of the day, the fact that I was already, at that time I was 19, about to go into a regional airline, like, okay, relax. There was guys flying checks like 15 years ago, having to build thousands of hours before they get on a classic dash, and then, make absolutely no money, sleep in a lounge. There's a lot worse out there. So just because I had to take a hiatus from aviation, so to speak, for like a year or two, not that big of a deal. And I think that the recovery happened not only a lot faster, but the post-COVID era, like for those 2 years after those early retirements happened, there was just so much growth. There was absolutely no way upon my graduation that I would think that I'd be flying a 737 when I turned 23. That was just absolutely unthinkable. And then it happened. And then it just happened. So it's like, you might come out of graduation and be like, this sucks. But then all of a sudden, like 2 years down the road, and something way bigger and better happens. So you don't know where life is going to take you. And I think that just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean you have to be, upset about it. Because I fly with a lot of guys who have gone through 2 or 3 furloughs at so many different airlines. They've gone through from one merger to the other merger to the other merger. And that's a lot to deal with. So I'm pretty lucky where I am. That's essentially it. So graduating with everything, literally furloughs and no one hiring, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We will be patient. In that time, I just tried to do whatever I could do to get that first job, like eventually leading me to shoveling snow at Toronto Pearson in order to get closer to the FBOs, in order to get the connections to get my first job, because I knew I was probably going to get into corporate before I got into the airlines, simply because I knew that there was at least some movement going on. There was some hiring going on. Yeah. And shoveling snow just led me to getting that next job, right? So you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. And 2 things on that is I love the mentality about it, because I mean, I like to ask the older pilots that I fly with, it's like, what do you think about the newer generation? It's like, well, I mean, most of them are good pilots. Like, they can fly really well. It's like, but they just don't understand kind of what we all went through, 20, even like September 11th or way back in the day. It's like how mergers from not making any money, sleeping on benches, people brushing their teeth in the airport, truly getting paid minimum wage. And now you have, I'm not calling you out, I'm just using an example, but like a 23-year-old coming in flying a 737, and they're like, what the actual F? Like, that never happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. So you are really
like doing fantastic in your career, going all the way up to 65. Who knows if 67 comes on? I mean, that's a very, very long career in aviation, flying airplanes. So when you look at that little hiatus you had to take at 19, when you had to wait a year and a half, I think it's worth it, right? Like, I think in the grand scheme of things, you're gonna be like, oh, I had a pretty good career. Yeah. And then,
honestly, it's a non-event almost. So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to minimize it because it is an event, right? Like, it is like you get sold expectations. You get sold many, many things in this career. You're going to be, when you go to the hiring and they're hiring like crazy, they're going to make promises. They're going to be like, all right, you're going to upgrade in 2 years. You're going to make this much money in 10 years. You're going to be on a 787 flying wide body to wherever you want in 10 years. And then 10 years comes down the road and you're still on short call reserve on a base that you don't want to be at. It's just how the airlines work. And you really...
which is why I always argue...
No, keep going.
Yeah, which is why, like, sorry for interrupting. It's why I always argue, like, you have to be in this industry. Like, if you love flying, if you genuinely love what you do, then you should go here, because it's going to suck. Like, sometimes it's going to really suck. Like, I'm not trying to paint it or discourage people from entering aviation, but there are really hard days. There's hard years. There's hard times for sure. But I find that so many people, I meet a lot of them at work, who are like surprised they're not at a legacy of right at 1,500 hours. And I'm like, well, buddy, you're right at 1,500 hours. It's okay. Like, you got to be a little bit patient, and you got to work towards it, and just be happy you're already flying a narrow body. Like, that's just unheard of 10, 15 years ago. And it's not to minimize, the pandemic. It was really hard for everybody. I barely was able to afford to put food on the table for my wife and I. But we made it work, and shortly thereafter, like, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is just the industry we're in, right? Like, it could be worse, is what I always say. Like, I meet the folks who got gray hair by the time they were 30 because they went through their second furlough, 9/11, SARS, 2008. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong, and I do think it could be worse. At the end of the day, at least if you're, right now, the biggest benefit, especially in the States, that you guys have is if you're stuck in a regional, sitting in the right seat, feeling like you're going nowhere, at least the pay isn't awful. Like what it was, if you were in that position 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot harder back then to make, 17, 20,000 in a year to fly for a regional.
Absolutely. And flying crazy hours too, like truly working minimum wage when you kind of add in like how often you're working, your duty days, and based on what you're bringing home. And I mean, you don't have to get too into this because I don't know where you are in probation or where you stand with the airline and all of that, but there is quite the difference in pay between the United States pilots and Canadian pilots, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. Everyone has their own opinions on the 1,500 hour rule. From someone coming from the outside into the US, I'm a huge supporter of the 1,500 hour rule, primarily for the wage increases that it has caused. We don't have anything like that in Canada. And you can fly a regional jet or an airliner at a young age earlier on in your career. But at the end of the day, no, I'm happy to be patient and wait and make the earnings for the last 30 years of my career happily. And I would never be upset by it. Everyone has their own opinions on the 1,500 hour rule, and safety is a whole other conversation to have. But when it comes to pay, it was a huge benefit. I'm a big supporter of it down here. I live here now, and eventually I will be separating from my airline, going on to another US airline. And it's the same airplane, same flying, but you get paid way more here. So it's fantastic industry to be in here.
Do you think it's just because of the 1,500 hour rule, or is it actual profits, or is it, I guess, what do most Canadian pilots think about the pay?
I don't know, because we in Canada, at least Canadians I find feel a lot, or they feel this way. We're not as big of airlines. We don't make as much profit, but at least from top down, from all the way from the CEO all the way down to your chief pilots, I argue that most of them get paid the equivalent of what our American counterparts get paid. It happens quite often, but we as line pilots are not seeing the same kind of gains. And I also feel that in the mentality here, especially exacerbated by the shortage, is people want a good contract. There's so many post-bankruptcy contracts that were negotiated that eventually American pilots, from whether you're, part of, the Allied Pilots Association, ALPA, or whichever carrier you're part of, everyone wanted to get out of that post-bankruptcy contract, mindset. And there's huge gains that are being made. Mm-hmm. And U.S. airlines have pretty much, we can all comfortably say that U.S. airlines have recovered from those contracts, from the pilots group perspective. And they've made gains beyond that. Quality of life has absolutely become amazing at most legacy carriers. Pay has been great as well. Huge improvements in all areas of every contract. It's great. Your dream is to want to work for one of these companies, and you're going to have a fantastic, comfortable life for a very long time. We have not seen, in terms of the amount of money lost in post-bankruptcy contracts in Canada, we have not seen that money come back. We still, in terms of value for every contract, even in the most recent one with Air Canada, not every single thing has come back, even though the airlines will be making billions in revenue and still surpassing approaching / surpassing the $1 billion mark in profit. So there should be some more gains. There's not. Here, pilots are really, really advocating for better quality of life. They want the pay raise. They want, to be appreciated. I think especially down here, the suffering from post 9/11, around 2008 area, SARS, whatnot, there was so much suffering and sleeping in too many lounges. You can see the gains in the contracts. Even some of these regionals, they'll be paying for your hotels while you commute. That's a sign that they don't want to have any more pilots sleeping in crew lounges prior to flying, being fatigued. Yeah. It's really, it's huge gains all across the network. There's been huge gains, but there's been a push for it. Top down, there's been a huge push towards this. It's great to hear CEOs, whether it be, Bastian or Kirby, going on the news and advocating for their pilots and really, showing a sense of pride, I guess, towards their airline, their company. And as much as there is always going to be tension between, management and airline pilots, I find that there's a lot more unity here in the States than there is north of the border. And I do think that helps that is reflected in the gains that you guys have here in contracts. And the 1,500-hour rule is a huge part of it, because at the end of the day, everyone who finishes flight school, even if you're going to get paid no money, if you're at 250 hours, you're going to go want to fly an Embraer and fly a bunch of people around and actually go from Toronto to Dallas and have a nice layover and come back, or fly 4 legs a day. You won't care, because it's going to be better than instructing till 1,500 hours, making no money, and then trying to get into a regional. But the airlines in Canada can take advantage of that and say, okay, well, if you want to come right out of flight school and you're desperate to pay off some of that student debt, we're not going to pay you much. And people will take the carrot. 10 out of 10 times. I would do the same. I can't blame them. Right. I did instructing for a little bit as well. And I as much as it was a lot of fun, airline flying is completely different. It's very sophisticated. It's really enjoyable. I love the job so much. There's nothing I would ever do. I don't care how big Hangar 22 explodes or vice versa. I'd keep both of them, but I'd always keep the airline flying. I love it. It's just fun when I go to work. It's always a treat.
Would you say a lot of pilots in Canada, you're speaking for all Canada right here, all Canadian pilots, but would you say it's common? Would you say it's common for pilots for either Air Canada, Rouge, WestJet, whatever it may be, to look at the airlines down in the States and be like, all right, I'm going to try my hardest to get a job there? Or is it kind of like, we want to fight, we want to have a comparative pay contract to what they have at American, at United, at Delta, Southwest?
So to get a work permit of any kind south of the border for an airline pilot has historically been a huge challenge for pilots. However, there have been a lot more success stories post the pandemic. I would say, I don't know, a quarter of the experienced pilots, and I mean 5,000 plus hour, 10,000 plus hour, most of them are captains, they apply for different kinds of various visas. Some of them, like even I think when Atlas was sponsoring one of my colleagues, she ended up going to she had an Australian passport, so she ended up getting into Atlas via that route and is there now. But everyone desperately would love to come to the States. A lot of people want to fight for better contracts. Don't get me wrong. You can see it in the divided votes when these big airlines when they vote on their tentative agreements. Here in the US, when you see, United or Delta vote on their contracts, it's pretty unified where everyone stands. In Canada, a lot of people are divided for various reasons, but that division leads to, I'd say, 30 to 40% of pilots eagerly trying to go south of the border to get jobs here, like quite a bit. I would say, but that applies almost to the rest of the world because I'm sure in Europe and in other parts of Asia, people would love to come to the United States in order to fly. It's truly like the industry that's been crafted here is incredible. Yeah. And it's the only place in the world where I would argue it's done right, completely top to bottom. It's fantastic here.
It's funny, you would talk to a senior captain at American or at Delta. They're like, "Oh, it sucks. Like it's not the glory days anymore," And then you're from Canada. You're looking in. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I just want in. Please, I want in." It's just funny what can change and how you can be hardened toward an industry over contracts, over 9/11, over 2008, over all the things that have happened.
Yeah. And I think it's important to try not to get jaded by those people because there's so many people who are negative. And no matter how much money is thrown at them, no matter how great their life is, they're still going to be upset. They're always going to be upset. So I try not to get jaded or get upset with those guys because they exist at my company. They exist at every airline forever. For sure. It won't matter. There's always going to be something. And, it's not the glory days for sure. And I'm sure I'm going to feel the same way maybe in 20 years. I'll be like, well, it was so much better when I was this age flying the 737. It's like, yeah, maybe. But, the only thing in life that's guaranteed is change. So, I just try to make it or try to advocate for a positive change and, ride the wave, I guess, and enjoy life.
So what's your path look like to get a job at an airline in the States? Do you have to count on a work visa or what's your strategy?
So I'm a permanent resident here in the States. I actually commute from Atlanta to Toronto right now to stay at my job for the time being. Yeah. I had a bunch of regional interviews, but long story short is through various meet and greets with other legacy airlines, I ended up finding out that everyone was like, okay, calm down. You don't have to immediately jump to a regional, start at the bottom. You're flying a 737, it's okay. Like it's either keep building your time right now. If you need better quality of life and live domestic in the States and not have to commute to another country, by all means, that sounds great. Find the job that works for you, but you don't necessarily need to rush to like a regional airline to sit on reserve, then to just, slowly you get a hold of the line where you're doing 5 legs in a day, which I was willing to sacrifice. If I didn't get to do that, I was like, let's do it. That's okay. I'll go from the 737 to the CRJ. Here we go. But I was pretty much advised against that. So I decided not to go down that path. And so we'll see where I end up being right now. I still don't think well, at least I'm not like, I'd love to go to Legacy right away if I could, but I'm not expecting a phone call for a while from them. I just, I understand things have slowed down, and anyone can get there, but I'm not planning on it is what I could say. Because I know guys who are still like 2,000 hours getting interviews with Legacies, and I know guys 5,000 hours. They're like, they're ACPs at certain airlines, and they're still struggling or they're being turned down, and so who knows who's going to be called and who's going to get the job. And so I just keep my head down, keep doing my flying, try to build my application, keep doing my resume building. In the meantime, commute to a whole other country to keep flying. So. But we'll see. I think within 6 months I'll probably be at another airline here in the States. I think so.
So Atlanta's quite the move from Canada, right? There are closer cities, big cities to where you live. Probably. What was the reason behind Atlanta?
Yeah. So all of my in-laws are here, and we have a 14-month-old at home, and then we have we have a baby boy who's on the way in October. So it was quite important that if I'm gonna do the commuting, I want to be somewhere where at least where when I'm gone for my couple days of work, I have family or in-laws that can come and take care of our little kiddos. So that's why we ended up deciding to come. We decided that Atlanta was going to be home for now, and it's easy access because like I can go on to Atlanta and fly Air Canada, or I can fly Delta or whoever up to Toronto. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Usually, like I've only had one day where I couldn't commute. I only had one day where nothing was working out. It's stressful. It's hard, but most of the time I'm lucky enough to get a seat. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to work. So it hasn't been too bad yet.
That's good.
So, and I, at the end of the day, I know it's temporary. If I get to an airline and they send me over to Seattle or Minneapolis or wherever, you know what? We'll pack our bags and we'll move. I don't plan on commuting once I get to an airline south of the border. This is just a temporary solution.
Yeah. What are you able to do CAS? Are you able to jump seat being flying for a different airline in a different country? Okay, so that makes commuting even more difficult.
So the way. Yes. So the way it works is they'll list you as a jump seater, but they'll transfer you from the jump seat list to the standby list, and so you'll just be moved over to standby list, which does make it a lot harder. So if there's no seats in the back available, there's no way I can make it work. Now, like I can sometimes make it work by taking a flight from, let's say, Atlanta to Montreal. And then if that's the only seat in the back available, and then Montreal, I can jump seat domestically in Canada from there to Toronto on any flight I felt like, because I can do a domestic flight within Canada, but I can't do anything in the US. And most airlines, even if I was part of CAS, at least most airlines, if you're going across the border and you're not working for that airline, you can't sit in the jump seat. At least in Canada, most of our airlines are like that. So it almost still be redundant and impossible. The only solution to not dealing with my nightmare is to get a job south of the border, and then if I was to commute, at least the commute's a lot more manageable.
What do the captains you fly with, what do they say when you're like, oh, hey man, what's up, Thomas? Welcome. Like, where'd you come in from? And you're like, actually, I live in Atlanta. Are they like, what? Or is that kind of common?
Everyone is like, well, what?
Yeah. It's like, there's easier ways to do this.
Always shocked. Like, yeah, I know, but it's what you got to do for your family and for your career. And like at the end of the day, we already knew we had to move. So it was like, I could have, I could have driven from Buffalo into Canada and went to Toronto, and it would have been way shorter than what I do right now. But then my wife would be alone for like 5, 6, 7 days at a time, and that sucks. At the end of the day, it was just easier for her family to be there. I pay less taxes by living down here as well, and so it's just in general, life has gotten better, especially when I'm home. Life is great right now, but at the end of the day, we also know it's temporary. Like this isn't a forever, I'm going to be commuting to Canada for the rest of my life. Because if that was the case, we'd just be living there. But this is just temporary, Band-Aid solution just to do the commute. And then again, in less than a year after the move, I'll already hopefully be working for another carrier in the US. And so at that point, that's not that bad. If I have to do this for this time in my life and then forever onwards, I'll be living where I'm based. Perfect. It's not the end of the world.
How hard has it been for you? I mean, I know your wife has a support system there, but it's still hard when, the person you marry is not at work. You got a young kid. Mm-hmm. But talk about the struggles with the commute. Has it been more difficult than you thought? And I'm speaking more, not necessarily like actually getting on the flight, but just like mentally leaving either a day early or the night before. You're missing extra time with your kids, with your family. How has that been for you mentally? Has it been pretty tough, or is it just like you said, you just had the mentality? It's like, all right, we're doing this for the family. It's going to be better in a few years. We're going to make sure that we're going to have the life that we want to live. That's just unfortunately part of what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's definitely, I don't know if it's harder than I thought it was going to be, but it's definitely fatiguing. Like over time, especially like at my company, we're a budget airline, so we're flying a lot. Like we keep a thin pilot group, or we keep everything's lean, and so we don't staff as many crews for every airplane, and so we're always flying. Like we're flying probably, I think next month I'm putting on 86 hours, which is like, and that's not an hour, that's not duty hours. It's just 86 hours of straight flying. So it's a lot of work, but and then you add the commute on top of that, and for I'm able to hold a decent schedule, so it's not terrible. And I'm usually able to bid for the trips that I want and get whatever I feel or whatever's going to be good for the commuting schedule. But it is hard because usually on like a 4 or 5 day trip, I'm going to lose a day on either end for commuting. And that's awful. And when that happens, that always really, really sucks, because that's a day I could have been at home. Like if you do the math, like I did the math, if I did this for a full year, I'd comfortably lose, I think, like 70 days in a year, 70, 75 days in a year, just on commuting. Oof. That's just me sitting in the back, not getting paid, just for no reason. I was like, that's just not sustainable. Like eventually that's going to catch up to anybody. And so, I mean, kudos and respect to anybody who commutes for their career. I don't think I'll be doing that. Even if I had a fantastic schedule, I don't think I'd ever do it, because it just gives me that extra time to not only be home more, but if I wanted to fly or work, I can always pick up. If it's so hard for me to pick up, whenever there's like 200% pay for like a 1 day trip, I can't pick it up. I'm all the way here in Atlanta. How am I going to get to work right now to go pick up this flight? So it's unfortunate to miss out on opportunities like that, where I can make a lot of money, have a good time, and that it does make it fatiguing, especially since, we have a little kid at home. We have another one on the way. And then we're also running this aviation themed coffee business, which is nuts. To do all of that together is a challenge. However, it sounds weird, but like on my resume, when I hand it over to a recruiter, part of me just wants to put like a one section that says family and be like, this is the sacrifice that my wife, my kids, and everyone else has made so that I can get to this point where I can hand you this resume. Because it's not just about me. Like, all of us are doing this together. Like, that app to every legacy in the United States, every other airline that I've applied for, like, that's not just me putting in the work. That's all of us putting in the work, because we know what we can expect once we get there. So it's all of us working together in order to make the sacrifices necessary to get to that point. So, that's just the reality of the life we've chosen. So, it's hard, but it's not forever.
No, it's not. And it really does take a special person to be married to really kind of hold down the fort while you're gone, because when you tell someone like, I'm going to be a pilot, they think, oh, cool, you're going to make a lot of money. We're going to go travel. We're going to do all these fun things, but they don't really think about, what the first couple of years are like, or what it's like being at a regional for 10 years instead of 5 years. It's just short call reserve when you're living in North Carolina and you got to go to New York, which that's my commute. It's not terrible. I've gotten used to it, but it's gotten better now that I have a line and I can drop stuff. I think last month I'm not going to make a ton of money, but I only flew like 45 hours. So I was able to drop stuff and only flew 2 trips, which was nice, but I was able to do this, but it would be with my kids, be able to be at home. But it really takes someone that's super strong, that understands, that can be independent. And it's a hard person. Being a pilot or being married to a pilot is very difficult. It's not easy. So kudos to your wife. Kudos to anyone that's married to a pilot. It is a tough job, and we see you.
Yeah, definitely. It is really tough, and I'm so appreciative of having her and her patience with all of this, because it's hard on everybody. But we're all sacrificing. We're all making this work right now, and eventually it's going to pay off. It's hard work on everyone's part, and that always ends up paying off.
Always does. Yeah, put the time in. It's going to pay off. I want to kind of circle back to Hangar 22 and something that you mentioned. You were finishing flight school, no jobs, and you said that you were just working at coffee shops. You're just kind of doing your own thing, right? You're just trying to make ends meet. You're trying to figure out how you're going to go ahead and provide, what you're going to do for a career. But was Hangar 22 Coffee kind of always in the back of your mind? Was this something like, I'm going to start a coffee business? Sounded like you were in coffee for a while. Sounded like you're a barista. You knew the world, you knew the business, you knew how it was going to work. But was this kind of something you always wanted to do? Or was it kind of fast tracked by just the point that, I need some money. Let's start a company, and I know coffee.
Yeah. No, great question. I always was interested in having a coffee business. That was always something I wanted to do, because in aviation, I think it's important, especially since we talked about it being a cyclical industry. I think it's important to have something else, whether it's to fall back on, or you never know whether it's the industry's going to take a downturn, or you're going to lose your medical, or who knows what. So I think it's always just important to have something else going. And I love coffee. I've always loved coffee. And in high school, I was roasting coffee to save money,
No way.
so I don't have to buy specialty coffee. And that's how I got into it. I literally just couldn't afford to buy any more specialty coffee. So I was like, I'm just going to save money by roasting it, and it's going to cut my cost in half. And it did. And I was like, this is great. I can drink so much more coffee. Not that I need any more, but I really wanted to get into it. And yeah, from that point onwards, I always in the back of my mind knew I wanted to do something like that, because I already was roasting coffee for friends and family, always brewing coffee in the basement of the airport, and everyone knew I was there making coffee for everybody. And yeah, during the pandemic, it was this kind of golden opportunity where for a year and a half, 2 years, like nothing was happening. And when I was working as an apprentice aircraft mechanic, before and after my shifts, the owners were really gracious enough to let me roast coffee in the hangar. Eventually, this led to people starting to come for cups of coffee, then bags of coffee, which eventually turned into, a little tip jar, then a cash box, and eventually it like kind of took off. And I knew I had to do something with it. Like, it was now or never, because you have this opportunity. You're not flying, you're not doing anything. And because I was roasting in Hangar 22 at the local airport, I decided to call it Hangar 22 Coffee Roasters. And from there, the name kind of stuck. That's it. So
yeah.
But then it was humble beginnings. Now we're a lot busier. I'd say most of my days off when I'm not flying, I'm just roasting coffee, bagging coffee, shipping, talking to clients, making other things work. Like it's usually that's what ends up occupying my time. So I dream of the day when I don't have to fly as much, because I'll be working for an airline that I want to hang my hat at, and then I'll be like, okay, this is great. I can maybe fly 60 hours this month and focus on my business instead of flying 90 hours and then struggling to juggle everything at once. So it'll be a nice time. Man. But yeah.
I can relate to the shipping the coffee part. I remember the first time, so I was working at my last job when I started Pilot's Coffee. And I remember when I announced it, I got a decent amount of orders and I was really excited. But then like when I came home, I was like, okay, I have to ship all these orders. And it's a blessing to have orders. It's a blessing to be able to ship stuff, but holy smokes, I never want to touch a cardboard box ever again in my life, or tape anything, or it's like, goodness gracious, it is painful to do that. Are you guys still shipping everything on your own?
Yeah, everything is done on our own. It's just the two of us doing all of it. Eventually we'll have maybe more people, but like generally speaking, no, it's just the two of us. We're ones making everything happen behind the scenes. Like my wife will do all the designing and labeling. I'll do the bagging, shipping, roasting, all that stuff. So it's like she and I literally are pretty much running like 50% of the operation on each end, and just trying to make it all work together. And it's a lot of coordination, but we do make it work. I can't complain, but it is hard. There's too many cardboard boxes littered around. I can 100% relate to that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I really think it's interesting when you're like, oh, they just let me roast coffee in the hangar, because I mean, you and I know that roasting you can spend a ton of money in roasting equipment, but like, what is that? You were talking about saving money because you can't buy specialty coffee. So were you just roasting in a pan? Like, were you just roasting like on a stovetop, or what did roasting mean when you were doing that?
So when I got into roasting, because as you know, roasting is really expensive. Even for an at-home roaster, it's like probably, I don't know, $300-$400 a day. It's like, that's a lot of money. And when I was 15, I got into this. I was like, there's no way I'm going to afford this. But looking and researching roasters and kind of getting into different kinds, one of the more affordable versions that I was interested in, a fluid bed roaster, which uses hot air as, I guess, the fluid, and it essentially will take the coffee beans and it'll push them aloft, and when they're in the air is heated, and that heated air essentially roasts the coffee, which is the exact same concept that a popcorn popper has. And instead of popcorn kernels, you can use coffee beans. And I ended up going and spending $20 at my local like Walmart in Canada. And I spent $20 and on this popcorn popper, put coffee beans in it. And from there, it just it worked. It worked great. And that's what got me initially started in roasting. And I did that for years. It was awesome. You can put a thermometer in there, like a thermocouple in there, measure you can chart out your rate of rise inside the popcorn poppers. Unfortunately, it's really hard to change the actual loft or the heat setting on the coil. So you eventually you're going to have to upgrade. But for 15-year-old me, it was revolutionary. And it worked great. And so I was able to at least get some coffee roasted from there. And then eventually, especially once Hangar 22, I knew it was going to become a thing, got a commercial roaster, like the same concept of fluid bed roaster, but just much bigger and much more expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you still using the popcorn machine?
Oh no! Oh man! If we actually had to if I had to guess how long it would take me to roast everything for Oshkosh on that little thing, I would probably be still roasting 10 months later, 12 hours a day. Jeez. It was never going to happen. It was it was great to do 100-gram batches at a time, and that's about it. Yep. But we've long retired that fleet, and now we moved on. But now we're using a 6-kilo drum roaster from Mill City, and so that's been a lot of fun working with that, and I've really, really enjoyed using it. Much bigger roaster, and does a lot more output, but it's not it's big enough for us to get the wholesale product out in a reasonable amount of time for AirVenture, but it's not so big where it's a 30-kilo roaster where I could not, or I would get Oshkosh done in a couple of days, great, but I couldn't, for a reasonable amount of orders, I would never be able to go use it because it just makes no sense to turn over 50 pounds of coffee per batch. That's just way too much. So it's a perfect size for us for now. And that's essentially what we're doing.
Yeah, dang, man. I just so my love of coffee comes from my wife. I mean, I didn't drink coffee till after college, pretty much when I started flying. I was like, dang, I'm actually tired. I need some coffee. So I started drinking coffee. She got me addicted to all the sugary drinks. Then I slowly realized that I just like black coffee. And when I was flying at my previous job, there's a lot of early days, there's a lot of late nights, there's just a lot of flying. You're drinking a lot of coffee. And I was like, this coffee sucks. All the coffee and FBOs. I don't want to say all. That's not good or a good thing to say, but most of the coffee was just so bad. So I was like, there needs to be a better option. And that's when kind of Pilots Coffee. And it also came, I was doing the podcast. I didn't have sponsors in. I was like, all right, how can I make any money off this? And decided to start my own coffee brand, which is Pilots Coffee. And I also recommend if anyone starts their own coffee company, try to get the trademark first, because then it becomes a little bit more of an issue down the road. So if Pilots Coffee does come back, it will probably be a name change coming there, thanks to another Canadian company, which is actually a pretty massive coffee company from what I've learned. So they just let me do my own thing because they know that I'll probably never get to where they are. But it's funny. Anyways, but yeah, so just realized, see what we could do with coffee, and really was gravitated toward the to-go coffee bags. I wanted something quick, wanted something very easy to take on the road. I mean, you've seen Pilot. I mean, at one point I was I can't remember what it's called, but it was a pressure espresso machine where it was this little cylinder tube, and you pushed it to create pressure, and you put an espresso pod in there and you make coffee. So I was trying to think of something that was really quick, that wasn't messy, didn't take long to make, and was able to find the steeped bags that we had, and those were great as long as you knew how to make it. I had one buddy who told me that he just put it in. You're supposed to steep it for 5 minutes, and he just drank it right away, and he never let it steep. He's like, I just thought it was really weak coffee. I was like, dude, it says it on the bag. How do you not figure this out? Come on, man. So I had to teach him how to do it. But so roasting coffee, it's a science. I know most people are now probably listening, they have no idea, but roasting coffee is a foreign language. It's like learning IFR, going from PPL to IFR. It's crazy. And I feel like it's probably pretty easy to mess up a whole roast.
Yeah, it is pretty easy to mess up a whole roast, but I will have to say, it's once you get sucked into it, you go down this rabbit hole of just there's so many variables when it comes to roasting coffee, and that's something that attracts me. I'm like, this is so cool. I can cause the roast to taste a certain way if I do this, or if I burn my batch, this is what's going to happen. There's so many different ways. You have these green beans, and you might have 3 different batches, and you can make 3 completely different profiles that will result in a totally different flavor profile at the end of the day. And so when you have three different, versions of the exact same coffee, it's unique and it's great. It's also beneficial for me because then I can utilize the same, coffee and have a completely different, like I can do a limited edition coffee for a particular show and roast it significantly later or have a completely different profile. And it will taste substantially different than maybe what it did a year ago when I used it or for a certain coffee that we're already making. So it's nice to have that flexibility in kind of crafting your own, your own product. Yeah. But once you get into it and you start it, I wouldn't like it's complicated. But if you try your best not to make it overly complicated, it's not that hard. I think anyone can learn. Like just like flying. Like flying looks very overwhelming. If you're getting your private and you walk into the flight deck of a 737, you're like, this is the most ridiculous, flight deck I've ever seen. And then look at all the switches are pushing and pulling and doing all these things. And then the briefings sound complicated. The whole flying is complicated. And then you just take it day by day, you do bit by bit. And next thing you know, like it's the language you speak and it just makes complete sense. And coffee is like a very small version of that. So it's definitely complicated. It can get complicated, but you can make it simple. And I think anyone who's interested in roasting coffee should get into it, and it's a lot of fun.
So how much better is the coffee that you roast in your very expensive commercial roaster versus the popcorn machine?
1,000 times better, like a million times better. Not that like that was bad, like it still got the job done, but here you have control of everything and you get a lot less outliers. When you actually have full control over it, it's like you go from like the Wright brothers to like the 747. Like it's a huge difference. It still flies, but it's it's a whole different. It's a whole lot better. You have a lot more control, so the quality is very much noticeable. Yeah. I enjoy the fact that I can put in a batch. I have full control over it. I already know my profiles. And the way I do my profiling, I usually chart it and graph it out myself. Like you can do digital programs, which are great, but I try to do it all by myself by hand. And then I will end up following that profile. Like I have a book that has all my printed profiles out. And then I follow that to a T every time I roast. Nice. For particular coffees that we regularly use. That way it's always consistent. The customer's getting the same product every time they order. But it's just fun. Like I now go roasting coffee on my days off and I enjoy it. Like it's like, this is exciting. And you turn the machine on, you get it all prepped and ready. And it's just a lot of fun.
No, I love it. Another thing with coffee is beans. And you, being from Canada, living in Atlanta now, me living in the States, North Carolina, we are not countries that are not known for roasting beans. So it's not something you're going to go, a couple miles away and find, not roasting beans, growing beans. So you're not going to find necessarily beans that you're going to want to drink from the States. So how did you go about finding beans? Was this something that you made relationships with farms, or was it reaching out to people that is like, hey, I already have the relationships, we're sustainable, we treat people well, all that kind of stuff, and here are beans that we recommend?
Yeah, I actually, the way I learned about green coffee beans is like when I was in high school and I wanted to save money on coffee and I got into it and learned about, getting green beans. I ended up just going to different coffee shops that roasted their own coffee. Mm-hmm. I just asked them as a 15-year-old, hey, where do you get your beans from? Who do I buy it from? And some of these coffee shops sold to me, but I did learn about who their wholesale suppliers were. Yeah. A lot of wholesale suppliers supply both to Canada and the United States. They supply to both. They'll usually, like especially on the East Coast, there's a couple different companies that have warehouses in Montreal and outside of New Jersey, which is fantastic. There's a lot of warehouses in the East Coast, Northeast, that have a lot of coffee stored in warehouses. And when I started my business, I worked with one of them, and I worked with a wholesaler out in Alberta in Canada as well. They shipped me quite a bit of coffee. But now down in the States, I actually use one of the wholesalers I use in Canada. I still use them. Nothing has changed. It's the same product, same coffee. It's just now they're shipping it to their New Jersey warehouse and then bringing it down to Atlanta for me.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them. There's a couple of them have warehouses, one that has a warehouse in Charlotte and in Jacksonville. And so we use them as well. There's just different wholesalers, and what they essentially do for us, eventually we'd love to get into direct trades with farmers and work with them directly and be able to import the coffee and, know the product and, have a working relationship with them. But for now, essentially what a lot of coffee shops do in roasteries, they'll bring the beans over to the US, the wholesaler will do all the paperwork, make sure everything is fine from an agricultural perspective. It's not only do they make sure that it's, from a legal perspective, everything's sound, but also they will cup it, they will roast it, they'll taste test it, they'll send you samples, they'll make sure that you're happy with the product that you're going to buy. And then from that lot, you'll end up just purchasing however many, 153 pound bags of coffee you'd like. And then they'll put it on a pallet and then ship it to you. And you can pick and choose from different countries, different regions, different farms, different programs, whether it's, fair trade or not. And you can get different certifications. You just pick and choose, put it on the pallet, they ship it to you. That's it. Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward.
What's your goal with Hangar 22 Coffee? Like, what's your wildest dreams, wildest goal for what you're doing and what you're building?
I think for myself, the biggest goal that I have, that's a good question. My biggest goal right now is simply to, it's, I guess, a life goal. Get into a legacy airline so I can focus on my coffee business just a bit more. But essentially with Hangar 22, the goal is going to be to open up the first coffee shop. Where that's going to be, I don't know yet. We're in talks with a couple different airports. I don't know where that's going to land or which one we're going to end up selecting. I do think it's going to be in this... Well, I would say like North Carolina is probably the furthest north we'll have it. It's going to be somewhere in the south. Why? Because I want to be at an airport that has GA traffic. I want to have an airport that if it can get corporate and commercial traffic, great. But I want to open up an airport coffee shop. That's like honestly been a huge dream of mine for a very long time, because how cool would it be? Like, I finish work and then I have my days off. I can go and roast a coffee. My wife and I, this would be our full-time thing outside of flying. And we just own a coffee roastery where, we're serving delicious coffee every single day. That's what we specialize in. Everyone can come and grab a bite to eat, fly on in, and be able to fly out. And I don't know where it's going to be exactly, but that's the long-term goal for Hangar 22 is to open up the coffee roastery at an airport. There's a lot of logistical issues and being a federal property or federally regulated property with having a roaster there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to work out right now. Yeah. But I do think that's essentially the next step. It's going to be is going to be going there. The only thing that's preventing me from pulling the trigger right now on like 100% just finding an airport, picking and choosing, is I want to make sure that I know where I'm going to be working for the next 30, 35 years of my career, which airline I'll be, and then from that point onwards, wherever I land, I will then go ahead and pull the trigger on the coffee shop. But that's essentially the next thing, because right now, like when I'm not working, it's all hands on deck for the coffee thing, and then I just make sure my vacation and time off is scheduled around shows. We're doing Sun and Fun. We go to MBAA. We go to Oshkosh. Like and other air shows in between. That's all I do when I'm not flying. And so I don't even have vacation time or anything like that where I'm actually off at all. And I haven't had that in like 2 or 3 years. And that's okay. It's all part of the grind, and you gotta make it happen. But at some point, it'll be nice to have a more flexible schedule to be able to really hone in and focus on the business. I also want to select the right airport. 2 years ago, we almost pulled the trigger on an airport in Wisconsin, and it was going to be a great collaboration with another manufacturer, and we were really looking forward to it. But I just didn't. It wasn't feeling right, because I knew, so for 6 months of the year, no one's going to fly into this general aviation airport. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be so cold and miserable. How are we going to make the money? And everyone between us and the investors were all like, "Oh, well, the locals are going to come," and I'm like, No, they're not. There's so many other coffee shops. Like, it wasn't like a crowd that was interested in driving 25 minutes to like up an interstate and down a county road just to get to the airport, just to go have a cup of coffee. It wasn't, that wasn't going to happen. So I was like, you know what? I don't think it's going to work out. And at the end of the day, the hangar ended up not being built. So we were very fortunate not to go down that path. But I want to make sure that I make this happen at the right airport and do it right the first time.
Talk about the biggest win that you've had with Hangar 22, and then also talk about either the biggest regret or kind of like the biggest like bad decision you've made where you're just like, oh, dang it, that was stupid.
Great question. My biggest, best moment, I think, that I really enjoy with Hangar 22, or things that I was really happy about, was our partnership with both Textron Aviation and with EAA. Having them, back us up, I can't thank them enough. It's been a lot of fun over the last almost 5 years now working with them. We do so many shows with Textron. We travel with them to so many different shows. Being able to serve coffee, they've been nothing but kind to us. We're just very grateful to even be with them, and they love our product. We have a really good working relationship with them, and that was a fantastic thing that ever happened with us. I was really, really happy when we kind of trialed it out. One Oshkosh, we sold out of coffee by noon every day, and we had to shut down early. And we're like, oh, so this thing is really big. Like, we just thought a couple of people would show up, and then by noon we were sold out and we shut down. And so then I realized, okay, we need to prep for like 10,000 cups of coffee to be turned over. Like, this is a much bigger show than we anticipated. And I mean, I'd been to AirVenture a bunch of times, but I didn't think that the coffee scene there was this, I guess, gap. No one wanted to spend insane amounts of money on coffee, and they wanted a good quality coffee, and we were able to provide that for them.
Dude, people want
for a very
coffee,
great
man.
price of no money.
That is even better.
So, yeah, exactly. And so it's a great way for us, to get that product out there. We're really fortunate with the relationship we have with them to make all of that come together and work. And with EAA, it's great because we've been able to sponsor them for the last couple of years, providing coffee pretty much exclusively to them for their volunteer kitchen, for their lounges, and we've been able to provide coffee to the Red One Market. It's been a lot of fun being able to have that coffee kind of just spread around the field for that 1 week and just the months leading up. Because whether it be for their Christmas parties or like I said, volunteer kitchen, which starts back in early spring, all of those areas where we're able to provide the coffee to them has been awesome. And in return, they've been very helpful and great at getting our product out there. So I love working with these larger organizations that also are able to support aviation in return. I think that EAA has done a lot for the aviation community, so it's great to be working with an organization that I can support and advocate for. That would be probably the biggest thing. Things that I regret. I think my biggest regret with Hangar 22 is not scaling it sooner. I think that we spent probably a year or two where we were stagnant, but we were kind of waiting, like, okay, we're going to move to the States. Where are we going to end up? Are we going to go to Atlanta? The hiring was going crazy. So then the question was like, will I really get into Legacy right away? Like, what's going to happen? I don't know. We were so lost. And so there were so many times, about a year and a half ago, we almost pulled the trigger on a large roaster. We're like, but do we want to pull the trigger and bring it here just to roast and then move it back down and pay to have it moved and shipped back? I'm like, do we really want to be doing something like this? So we were like, I don't think this is necessarily the best idea. Yeah. So we waited. Looking back, that's fine. I wish we knew we were going to end up being down here. So I would have, pulled the trigger on a larger roaster and started to scale the business a bit better, because I think we would have been a little bit further ahead of the curve. Like, we didn't start roasting on the new roaster until pretty much like a few months before AirVenture started, which was, our previous roaster was great, but for AirVenture, we turned over well over 1,000 pounds of coffee for the week. Like, it was a lot. It was a lot of roasting, and it's a short period of time because you never want to roast months in advance, because then the product's not fresh. You want to make it as fresh as possible. I'd say the vast majority of the coffee bags that people could take home and use weeks after was roasted within a week of the actual show starting. So
Oh, wow.
we try to keep it as fresh as we possibly can. I schedule my vacation time and time off so that I can accommodate all of that and then make it happen.
Yeah.
But I do wish that we were to. I wish that I were to grow the business, especially during a time in my life where I had more time. Not having our daughter, not that she's the best thing in the world,
Yeah.
but at a time when we didn't have our daughter, at a time when I was flying on corporate, like, man, I flew, I don't know, 250, 300 hours a year. Like, I wasn't working. I was relaxing.
All the time in the world. Yeah. What are you doing, man?
I had the business. Yeah, exactly. And now here I am, like, I got to do this. I got to do this. And it's just nonstop. It's been crazy. And then on top of that, I'm also volunteering with with my airline union as well. Has been occupying a lot of my time on top of everything else. And I'm like, this is wild. This is why I'm like so eager to get to the next job where I can just kind of, relax. I'm trying to, be as good as an airline pilot and as a father and a husband as I can. But it's tough to do all of it at once.
Dude,
and
so
I'm
tough,
a business
man.
owner. It's
So
tough.
tough.
It's definitely tough.
Yeah. Because something has to take precedence in the moment, right? Like, you're either sacrificing time as being a business owner, you're sacrificing time away from being a father, or you're sacrificing time away from flying and progressing your career. It's like, you can't do everything at once. So at some point you have to make a decision and, like, all right, this is when I'm hanging out with my family, my daughter. This is protected time for them. This is business time. It might be when your daughter goes to sleep. But at some point, you have to make a sacrifice, and you have to choose one of the three, or whatever it may be, how many choices you have. And you add union stuff to 4. You have to sacrifice something to do that, which is very, very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult. It's very rewarding at the end. Like, when you serve that last cup at AirVenture and you shut the machine off, it's like, wow, it's done. Like, you're relieved, but then it's also kind of bittersweet because then you leave and you're like, dang, it's over. Like, that was a lot of fun and it's all over now. I have to wait a whole year. But the weeks and months leading up to AirVenture is always extremely stressful. Our planning starts in January for that. So it's always a lot of work. So we only get a couple months where we get to be off and then we get right back into it. And that's okay though. Like, this year, I think next year we're going to be a lot more prepared, but it would have been nice to, like I said, to have the bigger roaster sooner, find a place, that we knew we were going to move to, and just kind of, and just commit to that and not have to worry. But we just did not know what was going to happen. Like, even with hiring and the forecasts of hiring in the States, like, everything's up and down. Every month is different. Like, 1 month you'll have recruiters be like, no, you need 1,000 hours PIC, we won't concern you. And then they're like, oh no, actually next year we're apparently going to hire 2,000 pilots. We need you. Get your applications in. And you're like, what? So it's everything is all constantly changing, and that clouded our decision making as well for the business for a little bit. So now that everything's kind of settled down, we know the path forward. And right now it is time to start scoping out which airports we're going to be working with, where we're going to have that airport coffee shop and roastery. So once that happens, then that's kind of the next step. I don't think it's going to be around the corner necessarily. I don't think like next year we're going to have this coffee roastery, like this awesome cafe in the middle of a really neat airport. I don't think that's going to happen that quickly, but I don't know. We'll see. I definitely think within the next 2 years, that's where I do want to land, like, comfortably. I just want to find the right spot.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best. I mean, it's good coffee. Like I said, it's awesome to have at EAA at Oshkosh, because like we said, the coffee before is terrible and it's free, which is also really, really nice. So if you haven't gone before, it's at the Textron booth. You can go get it there, and you guys are always serving with a smile on your face, even though the line's always like 10 people deep, and you're like, all right, what's next? What's next? So it's awesome. I do have a rapid fire section for you, and then we can wrap up and let you go, so you can go hang out with your daughter or do some more work. But I got some rapid fire questions. You just answer as fast as you can. Don't try to think twice. Just boom, 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 boom. You ready?
Okay, go for it.
All right. What's something you wish you knew before you were a pilot?
The amount of time away from home.
Who in the industry would you like to meet most?
First thought was actually Chuck Yeager, but unfortunately I don't have that opportunity.
Oh, that's good. It could be someone that
would be my
died
first choice.
Yeah. All right, cool. There you go. Favorite thing about aviation?
Airplanes.
Hardest flight you've ever flown?
A triple leg red eye from Vancouver.
Ugh. Yeah, no,
yeah, all the way back in a transcon at the end, at the tail end. So it was
Jeez,
2 legs, and then we did a transcon all the way to Toronto in one night.
Oof.
Yeah.
What's your favorite flight you've ever flown?
That's a great question. I did an aerobatic flight in Harvard and was able to log an hour of that flight. And that was probably some of the most fun I've ever had. Flying.
Favorite airport to land at?
Unpopular opinion, JFK, because every single day is a complete different nightmare or a great day, and you never know what's going to happen. I'm one of those people who do like the thrill of not knowing what's going to happen next and trying to make the best out of it.
What's your least favorite airport to land at?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I don't even have an airport. I don't think I have a single one that I dread.
Yeah, just loves airports.
There's nothing stands out where I'm like, I hate this place.
Would you rather fly IFR or VFR?
IFR.
Daytime or nighttime?
Daytime.
Would you rather fly over mountains, beaches, or the city?
Mountains.
Airbus or Boeing?
Boeing. I am heavily biased on that answer.
Favorite airline livery? Your future employer could be
Delta.
watching this, so be careful. Yeah, I was about to say. Think about it.
Yeah, how do I answer this very carefully?
What's the hardest check ride you've had?
Private.
CRJ or ERJ, if you had to fly one?
ERJ.
Piper or
ERJ.
Cessna?
Hands down. Cessna.
141 training or 61 training?
141.
Last 2 questions. What is the biggest regret you have in your career, if you have one?
Not going to the airlines sooner when I had the opportunity to do so.
Same. What is the biggest win of your career?
Going to the airlines when I did.
I love it,
and being fortunate enough to biggest win of my career is being able to be an airline pilot at the age that I'm 25 now, but when I started it, I was very, very lucky to get into it at that age.
Love it, dude. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was a lot of fun. I know at Oshkosh we joked. I was coming up to you, like, "Oh, you're the enemy, right?" Like a different coffee company. You're the most Canadian answer I've ever heard in my life. You're like, "There's room for both of us, man. I love Pilots Coffee," and I was like, so I can't do anything but just love you guys and what you do. So I wish you the best, and whatever airport you choose. I'm biased toward North Carolina. You know, there's a lot of great airports here. I can always get some coffee. So come to North Carolina, man. It's a great place. It's better than the
I'll have to say that North Carolina is absolutely stunning and beautiful. So I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll end up being there. Maybe we'll do a Pilots Coffee collaboration and have the airport roastery and cafe right there.
I love it, dude.
That sounds like a plan.
All right.
Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, I appreciate it. And before you go, if anyone's never heard of Hangar 22 Coffee, what's the website? What's your Instagram? Kind of give yourself a shout out.
Yeah, it's hangar22coffee.com, and then we're at Hangar22Coffee on pretty much every social. So you can find us there. Make sure you follow us and like our content, and otherwise go get a bag of coffee. We should we'll have to work on getting you guys a discount code or something, but otherwise go grab a bag of coffee to enjoy, and otherwise I'll be the one roasting it, getting it all ready and shipping it out to you guys. So thanks again for the support.
Yeah, use code Pilots Coffee is better and you get 10. I'm just kidding. Just joking. No, dude. But I really do appreciate it. Go buy the coffee. It is good. He gave me a bag at Oshkosh, so I need to buy one to support port. But I drank it right away. It was delicious. So highly recommend. He's probably drinking it right now. But go buy some. It's great.
Yep. Thanks,
Cool,
Justin. I appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime.